Republican leaders reportedly are coming together on a plan to extend Obamacare tax credits for up to 2 years while repealing other parts of the law if the Supreme Court rules against the federal Obamacare subsidies for people in states that did not create their own exchanges. A decision that could hinge on this key phrase in the law. It allows subsidies to be paid to policyholders, quote, enrolled in through an exchange established by the state under Section 1311 of the Patient Protection and Affordable Care Act. Let's bring in Elizabeth Harrington, staff writer for the Washington Free Beacon, and Kevin Cirilli is a reporter for The Hill. Elizabeth, how much enthusiasm has there been among Republicans now that they have to fix the law that they never wanted in the first place?
Well, that's really the problem for them, right? And they've kind of been putting this off. This was the first meeting that the House Republican caucus had to really put a plan forward. They're not really excited about it because it's a tough position for them, because if they win in the Supreme Court, they really feel like they're going to lose because they're really scared of the messaging war that they could be blamed for, millions of Americans losing these subsidies that they're now used to under Obamacare. So really, they're trying to come up with a plan that makes it so they're not blamed for losing the subsidies, but at the same time can kind of chip away in some ways with Obamacare. They extend the subsidies for a short while, but then the House plan would offer block grants so states could decide how to spend that money, maybe bring in things like health savings accounts, some more conservative ideas, and also get rid of the employer and individual mandates. So it's really, they don't think they can get rid of Obamacare. They don't really want this problem. They kind of want to push it off to the election, but they definitely need to have a plan so they don't feel like they're going to get blamed for this.
Well, they can't just throw the baby out with the bathwater overnight, right, Kevin? I mean, they have to come up with some kind of a plan that phases things in, assuming the Supreme Court, makes some changes to the law.
Well, that's a great point, John, and there's 2 points that I'd make. The first is that Republicans have been warning for years, ever since Obamacare was enacted into law, that parts of it were unconstitutional. And so now you're having a situation where the Supreme Court of the United States is very likely to strike down this subsidy provision. Now, as a result, Republicans have an opportunity, and the second point that I would make, to really kind of put forth an alternative proposal. And you're seeing people like Representative Paul Ryan, who has emerged as a deal maker of sorts in Congress, put together an alternative, but it's going to create a political tightrope that conservatives like Senator Ted Cruz and Senator Rand Paul, more Tea Party-leaning conservatives on the presidential campaign trail, are going to have to walk, simply because what is their alternative? What is their plan? Do they want to get rid of these tax subsidy programs? And of course, Elizabeth alluding to the messaging war, but I do think that Republicans have a case to make against Democrats in saying that, they've got to put forth an alternative simply because Obamacare didn't hold up in court.
But Elizabeth, Obamacare also didn't hold up in the court of public opinion. If you look at the last 2 elections, Republicans did very well, and it seemed to be driven in large part by Obamacare. So are Democrats going to be enthusiastic about, making some changes to this law?
Well, I think that's what's interesting about this Supreme Court case. It's really, the Democrats want to lose in court. President Obama wants to lose in court because that's what they like to do best. They want to unite and do what they like, which is hammer Republicans. I mean, even though no Republicans voted for this law, they didn't write it, which was written so poorly that even brings in this challenge. But here, Democrats, that won't stop them from saying, look, these mean Republicans are trying to take your health care away. They really want this fight. They're not going to give up on Obamacare. It's been unpopular since the beginning, but that hasn't stopped them from implementing it. President Obama through executive action, and they're going to stick with it. President Obama's a lame duck. He's not going to let this go. He's going to fight, and he'll use the bully pulpit against them. I think that's what Republicans fear the most.
Well, and he's using the bully pulpit, Kevin, against the Supreme Court. He's the one who said the Supreme Court probably never should have even taken up this case.
Well, it's fascinating because it really is a typo of sorts that has gotten this Obamacare ruling to the Supreme Court. But again, I think the bottom line, John, is that this is going to be a contentious Republican primary issue, and you're going to see more moderate candidates like former Florida Governor Jeb Bush, as well as Senator Marco Rubio, to some extent New Jersey Governor Chris Christie and Scott Walker, making the case that they have a better, more inclusive alternative to Obamacare versus more Tea Party party, more conservative ideology. How they're able to do that is going to be on full display, but I think Republicans will be in agreement that anything would be better than Obamacare, because before Obamacare, they'll argue, there was Hillary care.
Going to be fascinating to see what the Supreme Court decides and how the Congress then reacts. Elizabeth Harrington, Kevin and Kevin Cirilli, thank you both.